Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to our midweek message. My name is Shola Ade, founder of MBS Complete, and I'm here to talk to you about trauma and trust. Okay, now, so this whole series is looking at how trauma and trust are related, learning how to grow through it, learning how to understand it so that we can really understand how to navigate ourselves and how to navigate our outer world. Okay, so again, this series is based on trust and trauma. And so the first week we talked about people and trust. We talked about how to gain trust from relationships, how to learn how to trust ourselves and others. And then the following week we talked about trauma. What is trauma, right? Really trying to piece those parts of trauma together in order to have a full understanding, a deeper understanding of the complexities of trauma. Now, I'm going to be honest here. Trauma is a heavy topic. It's a very layered topic. And so there may be points in the video that I missed. So I would really encourage you all to continue to explore it if it's something that sparked your interest as I was describing it. Now, this week we're going to go deeper with how trauma and trust are related. Go ahead and get a pen and paper, get your pad, get your journal, take notes. If you have not watched our previous two videos, please feel free to check that out. I would really encourage it. This information builds on each other, and so you want to get a solid foundation of where we're going and what these main topics are, and the best way to do that is to go back and check out those other videos. Now, if you've been following, you already know what's next, okay? So we're going to break down how trauma affects trust this week. So starting very small, starting at the very basic level, we want to look at how trauma and trust are even related, okay? So going a little bit smaller and more specific, right, we get into what is trust, okay? Now, by definition, trust is the belief. Okay, it's the belief in the reliability of others, the strength of others, someone or something, right? So saying that you trust yourself, you have belief in your ability to show up in different ways. You have belief in your strength to show up in different ways. If you say you trust someone else, then you have belief in the fact that they will be reliable, they will be dependable. You are able to be in a state of dependability when you're dealing with that person. Let's say that's a thing, right? You trust your car. You got new brakes. You got everything fixed. You trust that the car will get you to where you need to go. You have faith. You have belief. You have understanding. You accept that, right? And so really, let's look at it even from another perspective in the sense that we talked about babies in the beginning. We talked about the baby analogy. And as babies, we learn by crying, by doing different things to get the attention of others, that we're able to have our needs fulfilled. So if a baby cries, the mother or the father or the caretaker comes and says, "Oh, something's happening. What does this baby need?" Whether it's food, whether it's the diaper changed, whether it's some playtime, some, interaction with others, we're able to then tune into those needs, provide those needs, and then in turn, the baby learns that, I can depend on this person. I can rely on this person. And ultimately, it builds up their schemes of trust. Right now, on the other side, if the baby is crying and nobody comes, nobody provides them with the needs that they are asking for, the needs that they are calling out for, then the baby learns on the other side that I can't trust. I can't trust that my needs will be met. I can't trust that people will pay attention to me if I make these different signals and sounds. And so again, that sets up their schema of trust and how they learn to navigate the world. Okay? So let's use that analogy even and think about how it's related to trauma, right? And so let's think about that baby that didn't get their needs met, the baby that did not get any attention when it cried. We could say that that is a traumatic experience. Now again, trauma is completely dependent on the individual. Everybody does not experience events the same way. They do not experience different situations in the same way. So something that may be traumatic for one person is not always traumatic for the other person. So also remember that. Now let's just say for the purposes of this video, however, that represents a traumatic experience. The child is not able to get their needs met, they're being neglected. Ultimately, they don't get the things that will help them sustain, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, whether it's mentally, spiritually. They're not getting those crucial aspects of their life experience met. Okay? And so what happens is that child, that baby, then grows up and questions everybody and everything, including themselves. So ultimately, trust and trauma are related because when we experience trauma, it impacts our ability to keep trust within ourselves and for others. Okay, so having traumatic experiences affects the trust that we have for ourselves and other people. Okay, so how do we deal with that? How do we deal with that? Why is that even important, right? Because ultimately, what we see is that in these situations where individuals experience trauma, again, we talked about the breakdown of the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, the psychological, and the physical, right? If people are unable to have those different areas of their life met, then what happens to their life experience? What happens to their perspectives that are shaped? What happens to their ability to learn, their ability to socialize? It gets impacted, and more times than not, negatively impacted. Impacted in ways where it becomes difficult or challenging or very, very hard to move through life, learning these different tools, learning from these different experiences. And so what happens is that lack of trust tends to limit our perspectives, and ultimately it limits our experiences. Okay, so as human beings, as pets even, because pets go through traumatic experiences, animals go through traumatic experiences, right? All of those things, all of those beings, right? Those living beings that are impacted by trauma, their actions, their perceptions, their thoughts, their love, all of those factors are impacted, are influenced by the trauma. And so let's say again, right, let's use the baby example. The baby becomes a toddler, grows up, becomes a child, is now an adult, right? So the experience that they had as a baby of not getting those needs met, that follows them if the trauma has not been resolved, so to speak, or if it has not been processed or worked through in different ways. So when they get to the point of adulthood, what happens? Remember that understanding of life that they were learning as they were going through those traumatic experiences of not getting their needs met? That stays with them. And so what happens if they walk into a relationship with somebody, let's say, and the person says, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll cook dinner. I'll make sure that, dinner is ready at such and such time, and I'll make sure that, if you need anything, you need a shoulder, I'm here." That person is then unable to trust that food will be ready at X amount of time. They won't be able to trust that that person is dependable, is really able to be there for them. And so at every given moment, they're thinking, or they're overthinking even, oh, is it done? Do they really have it? Is it there? What is it? Constantly questioning their experience, constantly questioning the actions of others as well. And so in that questioning, right, in that constant state of overthinking, what ultimately happens is they lose out on the ability to be in the present moment and to take things for what they are. Let's say that the person that said, I got you, don't worry, dinner will be ready. Let's say they have dinner ready like they said they were going to. That person may or may not trust that they did it because of the trauma. So they come home and already they're like, I bet you it's not done. I bet you it's not done. I know it's not done. I've been through this before. It's not done. And so they walk in already thinking that they're going to run into a situation where their needs are not going to be met. That somebody who said that they were going to do something does not follow through with those plans. And so they come in, they enter the room thinking this, right? And so, boom, they walk in, they see that there is actually food there, that the person did keep their word. Now they're questioning. They're like, wait a minute. They actually did it? Why? Wait, but why? What's their ulterior motive here? Why they do it? What are they trying to get from me? Right? And all these thoughts, all these spiraling thoughts start coming up. Right? And so in reality or in actuality, the person did it because maybe that's just who they are. Maybe that person grew up having reliable influences in their lives and they were able to trust. And so in turn, they grew up learning that it's okay to put my trust in others as well as myself. Maybe that person is coming from the perspective of, I'm going to always do what I say I'm going to do because that is how I continue to trust myself and others, by keeping my word. And so the person who comes from the other household that did not get those needs met, they're unable to see that maybe this person is just like that. Maybe this is just their experience. Maybe they love me so much that they want to do this just because. That becomes hard to believe. That becomes difficult to digest, right? And so that is a really, really, really big piece of this whole picture, right? The limitation of experience, right? And we won't go too deep into this, but what is the purpose of life and living? For some, it is to experience different things. And so if we're coming from a limited perspective in regards to what we are able to see as real, then our experiences won't be as fulfilling as they could be. They won't be as valuable as they could be. They won't be as unconditional as they could be, based on that perspective that, again, was implanted and learned as a baby, right? And so even thinking about an adult, how do you go back to that very first point or that very first memory of not getting your needs met? It can be so difficult, right? And then so for many people, it seems as though they may take on this helpless frame of mind, this broken frame of mind, in the sense that, well, this happened to me and there's nothing I can do to fix about it. This is just how I am. And so this now goes into another huge part, right? Because it's hard for them to believe that this is just what's happening. It's difficult for them to accept different realities, different perspectives, different ways of understanding. And so they may get stuck in this, well, this is just how life is. This is just how it's going to be forever. I don't know how to fix it. I've tried to fix it and it's just not working. When in actuality, is it really about fixing it? What is it about? Something to reflect on. Something to jot down in your journal. Right? So even thinking about things that we can do to start to undo, start to piece apart those early learned experiences, and even the ones in the present, right? Because maybe you're an adult already. Let's fast forward. Let's move away from the baby analogy, the baby example. Let's say that you're an adult and you're in a relationship with somebody and they betray your trust. Won't say what that looks like, but let's just say that that is the theme of it. They betray you in some way. And so again, the next relationship and the relationship after that and all the ones that come, you have this perspective of they're going to hurt me. They're going to betray me. They're going to do something that's going to not allow me to trust them. And so what happens with this expectation that's formed based on those experiences? They enter that relationship already not trusting, already having that lack of being able to rely on others, being able to rely on themselves and their judgment even. Well, I picked this person and they still did this, so I guess I can't pick anybody good. I guess I keep picking these people that just are not good for me because I don't know how to choose. This is all my fault. Right? Again, these schemas and these perspectives that are formed based on those experiences can have a lasting impact on any and everything that we do in this world. Okay? So again, to undo that, right? Let's talk about the 5 A's. I call them the 5 A's of ascension. Okay? So the 5 A's, again, take some notes, okay? The first A is attention. Okay, the next A is acknowledgement, and I'll go through them once I finish just laying them out for you. Attention, acknowledgement. The third A is awareness. Okay. The fourth is acceptance, and the fifth is action. Okay, so we have attention, acknowledgement, awareness, acceptance, and action. 5. All right. So attention now, very basically, we attend to what is happening. We notice what is happening. We observe what is happening, right? So let's say with the adult relationship example, right? Let's use that as an example to help frame this. Let's say that after this relationship, we now notice that we have a very hard time trusting people. We have a very hard time trusting the things that people say to us. We have a hard time trusting the things that are going on around us. We just notice. We're observing ourselves. We're unable to really capture what it is that is true and important for us, right? Because of this. Because of these experiences or this experience that happened in the relationship, we're now just noticing that there's been some changes in us. We're observing the changes in ourselves. We're observing how we do things. Maybe we do things differently now. Maybe instead of being open, right, with a partner or a potential partner, we're very guarded. But we're just noticing it. We're observing it, right? And so the next state is that we acknowledge it. So we observe it like, this is interesting. What's this about? The next state or the next stage is acknowledging that it's actually there. So recognizing that, oh, okay, this seems like guarded behavior. Recognizing it. It may or may not be true. It may or may not be. I don't know. We don't know yet. We're just recognizing that something is different. Okay, so we're observing ourselves. We're noticing things. We're paying attention to ourselves more. And then we acknowledge that, oh, okay, something is different. Something has changed. Right? And so then the next step is awareness. Now that we recognize that something has happened and something has changed within us, we then become aware of it in the sense that we bring it into our consciousness. We take it inward. We internalize it. So instead of saying something's changed with other people, with the world, we then bring it in and say, wait a minute, has something changed within me? What am I doing? What has happened to me? What am I now becoming more aware of now that I recognize that, okay, maybe these are some guarded behaviors. Maybe I'm overthinking a lot. Maybe I'm just putting so much effort into trying to figure everything out and to protect myself. It's now in your awareness. It's now a state of consciousness in the sense that you're mindful of what's happening to you, right? So you're bringing it inward. And then we get to acceptance. Now, this is the part that can be so difficult, okay? Because now that we've brought it inward, right? That part of ourself that wants to protect ourselves from anything bad, any pain, that part of ourself is going to battle. It's going to battle with the reality of things. And this is where it's so important to know that acceptance is not approval. You don't have to like what you are now aware of. You don't have to like the impact of what has happened to you in that situation. You don't have to approve of it. What you do have to do is embrace that that is the reality. You do have to embrace and accept the fact that, wow, this is me now. I went through that. I went through that betrayal. Now I'm guarded. And I don't like being guarded, but oh man, this is where I am. It is what it is. This is where I am at this current time, right? Because it doesn't mean that you'll be like this forever. I mean, of course, you choose that, and that's the next step that we'll get to. But you're just saying that this is where I am right now. Okay? Next step is action. Okay? So then based on you acknowledging it, you attending to it, you becoming more aware of it and really digesting it so that you can get to acceptance, you then have the ability to act, right? You feel more empowered, or maybe you don't feel empowered, but you are empowered to make a decision, right? So you being aware of this, you being aware and you accepting that, okay, I have changed. I don't like the changes that have occurred. However, I have changed. This is just my reality right now. Based on you getting to that point, you can then say, okay, well, I don't like this change. So I'm going to do something about it to, again, go through another shift in my experience so that I can be different because I don't like where I am right now. Or vice versa. Maybe you find that, okay, I've accepted that this is my reality. And you know what? I'm finding that because I'm accepting this, I'm learning the lesson in it. And maybe I was in a state of not being so conscious and so aware of my decisions and my choices that I allowed this to happen. I didn't look at the signs, maybe. And so by me ignoring the signs, by me ignoring the things that I saw, I end up in a state of betrayal. But maybe there was a part of me that knew from the beginning that this person had something not right with them. And I did it anyway. I did. But I've learned from it. And so these changes, maybe this guard that I have up now, maybe this can help me navigate my relationships in the future. In the beginning, at least. Being guarded in the sense that I'm asking certain questions. I'm not completely shut off from the world, but maybe there's a screen. Instead of a brick wall, maybe there's a screen between me and other people. And so I can see it. I can see them clearly, and I'm choosing to see them clearly while at the same time honoring where I am right now. Because this has happened. This is something that has occurred in my life. And I'm choosing to make different choices so that I can end up in a different state. And so maybe you do nothing really to change the changes that have occurred based on those experiences. So again, you can either do something about it or you can do nothing about it. Doing nothing is still a choice. Doing something is still a choice. There's an effect for doing something and doing nothing, right? They're both decisions. And so in making that decision to do nothing, maybe I enter into a new relationship with the same process or the same thought in mind that I've accepted where I was before. It's not me. Maybe it was the other person. Maybe it was I needed to go through that situation in order to really, really understand how to choose people from a very conscious, mindful standpoint in the future. Maybe I needed this to happen. So I'm not going to change what has happened as a result of this. Or maybe it's the other side. Maybe it's the other side where you do find that you tend to be very guarded and you're like, I don't want to not let people in. I want a relationship. I want to be open. I want to be vulnerable. I know it's hard. Acceptance. I know that it's hard. I'm accepting that it may be difficult to get there. But I'm going to do what I need to do to get there because that's my decision. And I know that in order for me to get there, I do have to change certain aspects of my experience, of how I'm looking at the experience, of my experience of myself, in order to go through that process of change. And so, whichever way you decide to act, the point is you're still taking action based on those steps that you've gone through. So again, those steps are attention. What's next? Acknowledgement, awareness, acceptance, and the last one, action. Okay? So let's just keep thinking about those 5 steps and then also thinking about in what ways has trauma affected you in regards to trust? How has trauma affected your trust in self and your trust in others? What's the outcome? What are you noticing, right? And then we go through the process of the 5 A's. What have you noticed in your reflections? Okay? And so when we get down to the end of the 5 A's, when we get to the point of decision making, we really want to highlight that importance of continuing to make decisions even when we've gone through some of the most terrible, the most unsettling, life-changing, life-altering, traumatic experiences. There is value, there is definitely value in being able to continue to move through that from a very informed perspective. Moving through that with the empowerment that comes with making conscious decisions as opposed to reacting. And we'll get a little bit more into the difference between reacting and responding in our next segment. Okay. So that was it for today. Again, we'll be back again on this topic before we close it all up at the end of the month. We'll be back again next week to talk more about what this action really does and these decision-making factors, how they contribute to rebuilding trust. Okay? Alrighty, once again, thank you for your support and thank you for showing up for you. Alrighty, happy healing. Have a wonderful day.